been doing this for a while now for Louisville over the last 2 seasons, will come up big again and find a way to win this game.
You know, I look at Louisville, and when you look at the way their stats line up, there are a lot of what you see from Carolina on a year-in, year-out basis. They've got veteran leadership that leads the team. You sprinkle in some youth at some areas that you need, and they're a threat to still they're a threat to win the ACC, and of course cut down the nets from April. They don't play at the kind of tempo Carolina is used to playing at. They're a little bit better on the half court, both offensively, and they're known for their defense. But I think that's the thing is Louisville's kind of where Roy Williams and Carolina normally is. They're a little bit more seasoned. They're a little bit more, ready to kind of win these kind of games. And, they had the 2-game struggle where Jordan Dora really struggled. But it could be something that when we're in March, they look back on and think, well, we're a better team because of that. And because they had to learn, they lost to those games that they struggled, but they also learned a lot about who they are. But you also bring up a really good point. Carolina has displayed the ability, whether it's been Duke, whether it was at Florida State, that they can play up to the competition. They just haven't had a win against a top-tier team. And Louisville, on the flip side, a loss to Carolina puts you out of the race for the ACC. Or, it drops you down. You're probably going to drop down a seed line. It's unfamiliar territory for the program. It's unfamiliar territory for us as fans. But it's still, in a lot of ways for Louisville, a big-time game, a big-time atmosphere. It's just the challenge to win the game is going to be probably a tall task right up there when you got to go to Cameron Indoor in a couple weeks. When you gotta, you've already had to go to Florida State where you've struggled at. You've got to go to the Carrier Dome. It's just, it's a tall task. Carolina doesn't match up well with them stylistically. The stats don't prove a way for Carolina to get the job done. Are you seeing an upset city in what's going to be a jam-packed, great slate of college basketball on Saturday?
I am not. I do, I talked about the road environment. I think that's going to be a key part. But I think the fact that the game is at 4 o'clock, Carolina is playing up to their competition, I think that gives them at least a chance, because a 4 o'clock game always is kind of like a sleepy game in the middle of the afternoon. And I think that, at this point, I think people are starting to realize that Carolina is not Carolina. I don't know if they're going to take Carolina lightly, because I just don't think that's how anybody really thinks, because they all still look at it as it's Carolina on the other side of the court. We have to bring our A game. But I think that, again, this team, we have not seen them stop fighting so far this year, no matter what. I don't think they're going to stop fighting because of what happened against Notre Dame, because it happened against Virginia the game before and they didn't stop. So I think, again, they'll be in the game, but I think Louisville is just a little too much, and they find a way to get the victory.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Carolina's going to compete for 40 minutes. You kind of can't come out after your coach drops an F-bomb in a press conference and basically demand, or not really demand, almost guarantee that the team is just not going to quit. It's almost illegal to not show up ready to play. The last time Carolina went to Louisville, they got a win. So I know it's a different team, different year, different setting, but the last time you played there, you did win. This game means more to Louisville than it means to Carolina, rightfully so. And I think that's going to be the difference. I think the buy-in into the game, if Carolina was battling for even an NCAA berth, I think there's maybe a better chance for an upset. We're not in that situation right now. Right now, we just want to get a win.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Louisville will get the job done. I think they'll win. I don't think it's going to be the same that it's been the last couple of weeks where we come on here after we've blown a lead or blown the game, and we're just trying to figure out where it all went wrong. I think this is a game that Carolina gets beaten because they're not the better team. And I think if we can agree, if that happens, Carolina loses because Louisville's better, then that's so. I think losing isn't great, but it's a lot easier to talk about when you just get beat because you weren't the better team. Whereas against Duke, against Virginia, against Notre Dame, you just didn't make the one play you had to make.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That's pretty much been, like you said, the definition of this season, which is, not making the plays when you need to and falling apart late in games. And they got to avoid that here in this one again because, if you got Louisville on the ropes, which we've seen from Clemson and from Georgia Tech that it is possible, you've got to be able to finish it off. And you would think that if that happens in this game, with what has happened in the last two, they could find a way to get it done, right? The odds would tell you that there is no way in hell that you're going to blow 3 straight games like that. So if they've got a chance late, then you can believe that Carolina, can hold on and win. I think we all still believe that. Anybody that says, well, I knew they were going to lose the whole way, I don't believe them because even though this team hasn't been great, we're still going into every game thinking, okay, well, if you win this, you can start to gain some momentum. At least I am. You win this, you can gain some momentum. You never know what could happen in the ACC tournament. This is Roy Williams and Carolina. So, if you can find a way to upset them, great. If not, I'm with you. If it's a game where Louisville just plays better than Carolina, I'm not going to be overly mad because, at this point, just from looking at the two teams this year, Louisville's a considerably better team.
Yeah, and like you said, you find a way to win. You got State at home on Tuesday. We all know Carolina's reputation against NC State under Roy Williams. You just don't know what could happen. But if something's going to happen, it's got to start now because you're closing in, as of this game, 2 weeks left in the regular season, 3 weeks away from Selection Sunday. So if they're going to make any kind of noise, and we understand that the task is daunting, it starts this week. One last discussion before we get out of here. The basketball account tweeted about Garrison Brooks and what he is doing individually in the ACC. Garrison is second in rebounding to John Mooney from Notre Dame, who leads the ACC and is second in the country in rebounds per game. He is second in the conference in field goal percentage behind Vernon Carey from Duke. And he is sixth in scoring. The big man from Lafayette, Alabama, has had a spectacular season that is not going to get talked about enough nationally and even probably in the conference because they'll see the record and they won't care about the numbers. But what Garrison has done in a lot of ways, unexpected, the amount of offensive production that he has become accustomed to producing. We never expected that when we saw him start as a freshman 2 years ago. What has impressed you about the big man's growth as a player, both offensively and defensively?
Well, he's really just become the leader of this team. And, in the offseason, we challenged him to do exactly that. At the time, we were just challenging him. We did not actually know whether or not that would happen. And we saw that really, and unfortunately, it kind of came to, we kind of all came to that realization that it was happening during that stretch early in the full ACC slate where Carolina lost games to Georgia Tech, Clemson, but he was dominant. He was the one that was out there playing. Everybody else was going through the motions. But what he's done so far this year is amazing. And you say, oh, well, they're not going to talk about it. Well, you're exactly right. They're not going to talk about it because they're already not talking about it. Every game that we see Carolina play, they want to talk about one player and one player only, and that's Cole Anthony. And that's fine because Cole Anthony was a guy that came out of high school and was pretty much touted as possibly the best player in this class. And with James Wiseman sitting out for most of the year, it makes sense why they wanted to focus on him. But right now, they should be focusing on what Garrison Brooks is doing because Cole Anthony has been horrible compared to what people thought he was going to be. He has been a severe disappointment. Garrison Brooks is a story that you should be talking more about because this was a guy that early on in his freshman year, we thought that he would probably be playing a rotational role behind Sterling Manley. And the two have gone in the completely opposite directions from what we thought. Now, Sterling, that's because he's had the injury, but Garrison Brooks has turned into a guy that legitimately, coming into next season, depending on where they see Carolina eventually when they go through all the preseason predictions and everything, will probably be one of the preseason favorites to win ACC Player of the Year. And he deserves it. I know that he's had his moments where he's gotten frustrated, hasn't been great on the defensive end like we saw him the first 2 years, but at the same time, part of that is because he's having to spend just so much energy on the offensive side of the basketball, and at some points, you say you can never really give up, but let's be honest, a year like this is taxing on everybody, especially with the way that this team has lost a lot of the games. So it's going to happen to everybody. Nobody is going to be able to just fight through that and just keep going and say, oh, that's just part of it. You're going to have those moments where you're going to say, this is just getting ridiculous. You're going to have to go through the motions at times. But I got to hand it to Garrison. In a year where there are very few positives, he has been one of those guys that has come through and stepped up the way that we thought. It's just unfortunate that a lot of the other guys that we challenged in the offseason have not done the same.
It's kind of weird that now you have to worry, does the NBA draft become a possibility for him?
I don't think so because he's a little undersized and he's still got to work on the jump shot. But somebody said that before the season and I told them they were nuts. I think you're right that now it doesn't seem as nuts as it once did.
Yeah, and that's where we're at. He's displayed a more lengthy jump shot. He can now hit from 18 feet consistently. He's hit 2 3-pointers this year. He made one the other night that looked fluid. So that part of his game is there. He's as good an individual defender you're going to find for a big man in today's basketball. He's going to rebound the ball. He's a leader by example. So there is a lot of qualities that the NBA is going to like about him. I really don't think that happens just because I think he's taken this year extremely personal, because he's gotten, for some reason, a lot of the criticism for the lack of winning. Although there were games, Georgia Tech, for example, he was the only one that was evident on the floor that cared the entire time he was on the floor. So I think he'll come back to kind of leave on a more positive note, but this is something that I think we'll have to monitor. And it's just been a lot of fun seeing him develop as a player. He's the latest example that I'll just go to whenever we see somebody say, well, Roy Williams can't coach and can't develop talent. Well, you go watch Garrison Brooks as a freshman, whether you want to look at him as a freshman in November or a freshman when that team was losing to A&M in the NCAA tournament to where he is currently, and he's just not the same kind of player in a positive manner. So with that, anything else from you before we get out of here?
No, I think that's it. Carolina's still fighting. We're still going to be here covering them, so we'll be locked in and ready to go on Saturday, and hopefully this team can find a way to pull a major upset.
All right, well, that's going to wrap it up for the 117th edition of the Royals Boys podcast. Before we let you go, we know we're going to talk to you about HeelToughBlog.com. A lot of great content on the website. You want to go back and read about the heartbreak from Notre Dame? We've got you covered with my recap and Anthony's analysis